Yeah.
Setting it up.
Hey.
We are now streaming live on Facebook, connected and live. Hey, your video has just dropped out, Liz.
There it is. Back.
There it is. You're back. You're back. Welcome. Welcome back. So grateful to have you jumping on with me to this series today. How are you going?
I'm really great. I've had a really interesting start to 2020, and today is a great day. Yeah, it had a really interesting energy for me around. What happened?
Sorry, I am figuring this tech thing out, and I opened up a thing at the wrong time, but it's all good now. So you're telling me you had a fun start to the year?
So the end of 2019 was super powerful with the summer solstice for us and all of the energy around that. And then it kind of took a little bit of a dive energetically and went to this really flat space for me. And it's only yesterday and today that I'm starting to come back out of that. And it's been almost like a cocooning and a reset. And I think that that's really important to recognize, because for people who may be feeling like, oh my God, I thought 2020 would be different. I thought the new decade would be different. And here I am. I haven't done this and I haven't done that. And this has happened and this person doesn't like me. And oh my God, there's this other thing going on. For people who are feeling like that, it's normal because time isn't real. And so the concept of a calendar and a date is a made up concept that, man made up, and it's useful in creating schedules and allowing us to tell other people when we're doing things. And yet energetically, we all have our own vibration. And so what happens for each of us is the new year or the new cycle may not necessarily start on the 1st of January. And what's come through for me the last few days is that this is just the end of the last cycle, and the new cycle hasn't really begun yet. So just keep going because it's coming. And that's for me individually. And so each individual will experience that start of the new decade or the start of their new cycle in their own time. And a lot of people expect it to be on the 1st of January. And yet that's totally unrealistic. It depends on when you were born, what the energies in your field are doing, the energy that you're currently creating, who you're around right now, what your circumstances are. So I think it's important to recognize that a date is not real.
Yeah. I love that we jumped straight into like time not being real and this whole magic cycle energy thing, because I've had 3 conversations this morning and all of I haven't posted much on Facebook in a long time, and this post came through me this morning, was all around that the timing of things is out of your hands. It has its own time, and that your job is to show up and be part of it. And then someone else is also like, but then things don't have to take time. So whatever time you think they have to take, they can be less or more, and it's really got nothing to do with you. And that judgment or resistance, or that there should be a time, can create so much pain or tension or inner frustration. It's just like, it's all an illusion.
Yeah, and the worst thing that can happen is it can assist people to give up. And every individual has their own special message or medicine or purpose, whatever word you choose to label that with. They all have one. Every single one of us has one. And the concept of, I'm going to start my new business in the new decade, it's going to be perfect. And then the first 2 days happen, and high achievers, entrepreneurs are all high achievers. They sit there and go, oh my God, I started my business 2 days ago and I haven't sold anything, or I haven't done anything, or no one's even looked at my page, or they start having these doubts. And for some people, that's enough to allow them to give up. And a lot of that's put on by this time pressure. And I think when we almost surrender and give space to time without lessening the action that we take when we're on purpose, then we allow ourselves the ability to achieve more in a smaller period of time by actually letting go of the constraint of time. It's gone really deep really quickly. That wasn't my intention.
No, I love it. I love it. And to be honest, I've been working through my list of people and blocking in different people for days, and no one was lining up for today. And this morning, I'm tuning in, And I think you'd posted something came up in my feed, and my voices were like, you need to speak to Elizabeth, get on, you need to get her on today. And I'm like, it's today. I haven't even asked her yet. This feels really abrupt. And then I'm like, oh no, I'll go through someone I've already approached and see if they can do it. And I do that. And then like they get very insistent. I get told how things are sometimes. But you were meant to be today, and it was just perfect that the timing worked out. I'm so happy about that. And awesome. I can see why. Like I think yesterday with Jeff, the conversation went very much to our ability to firstly be paddling already, to stop floating in the water, waiting around with our stories, like to actually choose opportunity now, to stop letting the fear stories run us. And then this question today, which I love dropping straight into the stream too around time, is that if you are getting called to do something now, then now is the right time.
Correct.
It's not that you should have done it before or that you need to wait for something else to drop into the line. Is that if you are getting the push now, it is now. However imperfectly incomplete or, you know, spectacularly overdue it is, it's now, right? And that it was always meant to be now.
Absolutely. Yeah. And everything else had to come into alignment before it could be now.
Awesome.
And whilst it may not feel like it's in alignment for you, so it's about the energies being aligned, and yet you might be thinking, whoa, I'm not ready. It's not time, and everything's pushing you to tell you it is time. And it's about being able to surrender in that moment. And I know Jeff talks about the stream, and I use some of this in my training too. And I liken it to floating down a river on a lilo. And given that it's an Australian summer,
his was a little bit more surfing the wave, and as the crest comes over the reef and stuff. Anyway, but I like the lilo as well.
The lilo floating down the river, and you get to a fork in the river, and you have the choice to put your hand in the river and steer yourself in whatever direction you choose. And a lot of people allow the river to passively take them on their lilo. And sometimes they're going through this part of the river that's beautiful and there's lovely trees and a nice breeze and it's warm. And other times they're going through the scorching desert in the river.
Or the rapids.
And they didn't even think about the fact that they had a choice at some point to put their hand in the river and create a rudder for their ship and steer it in a direction that they had some conscious choice over. And so they are allowing things to happen unconsciously. And a lot of the time they're also saying that that's okay to themselves because they're saying the universe will provide, the universe will always deliver. And whilst those things are true, the universe often delivers in a package that you're not expecting. And so as you step into that really spiritual space of going, okay, I'm just going to surrender and allow, there can be problems with that too. So it's kind of a message of flexibility. There needs to be a flexibility between trusting and surrendering and with taking action and creating forward momentum. And it's the delicate balance and the paradox of both being true and present at the same time, and knowing how your flexibility of behavior can move between the two in a dance that feels right for you.
For sure.
And
how the stories that run through our heads actually support us in both of those realms. Like some people are great when they're in action and their self-talk is amazing, but the second they slow down, their self-talk is like so mean, or vice versa. Like you're fine while it's cruisy, and the second you start trying to act or move forward through something, the self-talk becomes very much around how difficult it is, or you're never going to make it. And it's to really have fluidity in the selves that talk to you.
Absolutely. And recognize they are both you.
Yeah.
That it is
sometimes. That's sure.
And are we going there?
We can go there. Look, I've heard voices now for over 12 years, and sometimes the many selves are part of me and sometimes they're not part of me. Sometimes I'm part of something else, and so I don't really see self as quite such a linear concept anymore, and I'm really okay with that. But I know everyone relates to it quite differently. So,
well, it's interesting that there's a lot of people talking about this at the moment, and I've taught for a long time about the things that are happening inside of special agencies in America. And, you know, there's been an ambassador to outer space for over 15 years now who's paid a very high wage. And yet there has to be something in outer space to warrant having an ambassador for outer space. And then, you know, in December, Donald Trump announces their Space Wars or Star Wars program. I can't even remember what it was called. And it's like, okay, this is really cool. And we're doing it under the guise of protecting satellite structures and physical things in space. But what's really happening? And I think that ability to ask those questions whilst not being freaked out about it, the ability to look beyond this that we experience in the human form is really important. So recognizing that voices don't make you crazy, recognizing that we can step outside the medical model, or that even being crazy is actually okay, and stepping outside that medical model of going, well, the voices are making me crazy. Well, I wonder what would have happened in the olden days when the voices were making people crazy if the doctors had have turned around and said, what would happen if you listened to the voices? What would happen if you did what the voices said? And obviously there's certain clinical conditions that can create this kind of phenomena. However, in the absence of those clinical conditions, this phenomena still exists for many people. And for me, that I call it divine guidance. And that guidance, I believe, for me, is a part of me. It's a voice that's part of me, but I recognize that that voice doesn't come from this realm. Therefore, it's a part of me in a different realm. So I think that
I love that we open this up, to be honest, just so you know. But we are going to transition into some questions really soon. But what I'll say is, as someone who's walked in and out of the mental health system and through into a place of real spiritual empowerment and integration and comprehension of the layers of reality because of my voices experience, voices and the experiences with them, you know, what I'd say is there's no one linear answer.
Exactly.
It is probably the simple answer, but that hearing voices is a normal human variation, and research has shown it's much more like being left-handed than it is being like anything else, and that there's it's something that's very much on a spectrum, and that around 8% of the population will experience it at some point during their lives. So it's not as uncommon as we believe, and it's one of my passion projects in terms of areas of research and contribution, and what I love and want to see evolve in the world in the next decade. And
it's part of the paradox. And as we continue to move into this new decade, if we are to label it as a time, then the paradox is going to land. And the people who are willing to accept that what sits outside the standard societal rules is possible and in fact probable are the ones who are going to find it easier to elevate and rise, and who in fact are going to be the ones who become the leaders. So those who are able to hold a paradox in their mind and move with that fluidity between both ends of that, I guess that if you want to make it linear, move between both ends of that spectrum, those people are going to end up being the people who allow others to rise. They're going to be the thought leaders, the ones that can accept that there can be both things at the same time, that you can love and hate someone at exactly the same time, not love them today, hate them tomorrow, but love and hate them all in the same space. And that you can be yes and no about a particular thing at exactly the same time. So I think that's an interesting passion project, and I'm definitely keen to help you on that whenever you need that.
Sure, we can touch base on that as we go ahead.
Great.
I'd love to ask a few questions and just drop it into a little bit of reflection before we start looking forward, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
Cool. What did you love most about 2019?
So 2019 was a massive period of growth and expansion for me personally, and as well for my business. And so for me personally, what I loved about 2019 was my capability of being able to handle that expansion and to do it gracefully and to overcome the challenges as they turned up without regressing to former ways of behavior. So allowing it to wash over and then make a conscious decision from a place of choice rather than a place of limitation.
Awesome. And what are you grateful to have ended in the past decade?
In the past decade, it was a massive period of turmoil for me overall. So 2019 was quite good, but prior to that, in the 9 years prior to that, it was actually very tumultuous and there was a lot of drama. So I'm grateful for the end of drama. Now, when I say that, I'm grateful for my growth that has allowed me to end my drama, because I believe that we create a lot of drama for ourselves. And it happens when we're going through a transition period, because there's the fight in the ego to stay where we are versus to move where we need to be. And so I'm grateful that that transition appears to be complete.
Yeah, it's nice. And drama is just one of those busy, sort of cluttered energies that it just floats and gathers around stuff, and it's so nice. You just flush it out, and you float along without it for a while, and then you look back and you're like, how on earth did I cope with all that? Like, why did I keep that there for so long?
Yeah. And it's kind of like that cartoon character with the grey cloud raining just on that cartoon character. And all you had to do was look up and the cloud would have been gone. Yeah. But you looked down and stayed so engrossed in it. So I'm grateful for that growth and transition that I've had through that. And that it now seems to have it has disappeared. Yeah.
It's beautiful. Yeah. It's beautiful. Noticed just through waves of that kind of energy, the real stark, heavy, finger pointing-ish feel, very
full flame.
Clingy. Yeah, it's just flushed out layers of it, not all at once, but layers at a time. Yes. Oh, we've got a few people jumped on watching. This is fun. I'm trying to figure it, I'm learning, and I really appreciate your patience with it, guys, but how to have the Zoom where I watch Elizabeth, and then I also have my little phone where I'm trying to manage the comments. So if I do miss a comment, I'm sorry, but I'm working on it. So next question, what do you think we learned as a collective last year?
As a collective last year, I think that we really started to embrace the collective. So I think prior to that, there were pods or cells of collectives where there were little tiny collectives that gathered together and they were somewhat exclusive. And I think through 2019, there was more of that because the collective idea became more powerful. Yet I believe there was a rise of less exclusive collectives that allowed people to feel, the walls came down, it allowed people in. And this extended from small local collectives right through to the secret hidden societies. There was a lot of movement.
It's I didn't join any secret societies, but I did. I joined Carl's Chocolate Secret Society. But there wasn't any secret societies I learned about.
I'll tell you about some of them later.
Tell me about some of them, I guess. We can't do that on a live if they're secret. No. So, but yeah.
So there was that crumbling of exclusivity and the recognition that everybody has these gifts and that it's okay to not personally like someone as long as you respect and embrace the fact that they have a message and that they can be part of your collective without you necessarily having to straight away deal with the projection that is you being reflected in them. So, whereas previously people would say, oh, I don't like that person without recognizing that that person was them and therefore exclude them. Whereas now, I think in 2019, those walls came down. People were willing to accept that, okay, you might be me and I don't have to deal with that version of me just yet. So I'll let you in. And when I'm ready, I'll go and deal with what I don't like about it. So I think there was that.
It's a really interesting way of describing it. I like that. Really cool thought. So my next question, particularly on the reflection angle, is that what's the most important leadership trend that you saw rising over the last decade?
So the ability that leadership comes from your ability to understand self more than your qualifications, more than your pieces of paper, more than the amount of people that recognize you. And to give you a real example of how that played out for me, I was the manager of two sections of Westmead Hospital. So I often ran the birth unit, which was the largest birth unit in Sydney. And at the same time, I ran the stillbirth program as well. So I was a leader in my field, and yet there was no recognition, there was no opportunity to create change, there was no leadership skills happening despite being labelled a leader. And then I went from that, again in the last decade, into lecturing medicine at Sydney University, which is very unusual for, I was a nurse at the time, for a nurse to be lecturing in medicine. And in fact, I'm the only one who has done that at Sydney University. And stepping into that, another leadership role, being seen as a leader by the students, and yet still having the faculty look down on it as, okay, we've done this experimentation, when can we finish? When can we get rid of this non-doctor out of our system? And so it was that when I stepped out of that system and made the decision that the system was no longer serving me, was when I really stepped into leadership. It was when I recognized that I needed to lead myself, and lead myself in my truth, not lead myself in someone else's truth, that I stepped into real leadership. It was when I recognized that this is not something that you do alone. It's something where you require coaches, mentors, advisors, and you seek out experts in the areas that you want to and need to change in yourself. Leadership is often a humbling, or more than often, it's nearly always a humbling place to be. It's nearly always a place of, I don't know anything. Like, I'm the leader and I know nothing. So please let me commune with other leaders so that we can talk about collectively what we know rather than what I know. And it was that coming together is what leadership really is. So leadership is the ability to look at yourself, be okay with who you are, understand your truth, and then be able to move forward in that. Did that answer the question?
For sure. It's amazing how much that that for me too, like that leadership journey has been inner, and so much the permission of how I saw myself, of what I was allowed to do and be, and even just reflecting on, like, I think I'm one of the spikiest people I know in terms of abrupt or short-tempered, but for me, like, emotions come and go like storms. Like, I will barely know about it, like, 10 minutes later. But I realized that for me, leadership has gone hand in hand with those communication abilities to repair and continually deepen relationships, rather than, oh, we've got a disagreement, let's walk away, or so-and-so's in a mood, we don't like each other anymore. Like nothing stops at that level for me. It's like, there's always a way to find common ground. Like, if we're building the same future, then there's a way to keep coming back to find each other and to find a shared values or meaning or a way of seeing. It's like somewhere in between. And leadership for me is also that commitment to a future. It's not about what anyone particularly feels in any given moment. It's about, at the end of the day, where are we going, and are we going together?
Exactly. And at the same time as finding that common ground, recognizing that sometimes the other party doesn't want to find the common ground, and being okay to forge forward, keeping the door open without having to feel the loss, without having to call it a loss, without having to shut a door or slam a door, just leaving the door open and going, hey, they're not there yet, but I'm not going to change the way I behave. I'm going to keep forward, and when they're ready, they can come back through the door, and I'll be open arms and waiting for them. And we'll find the common ground when that's time.
Yeah, the timing, again, it's like the start of the conversation. The time, things have their own timing.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, well, let's shift to the looking forward convos, which is, what's new and exciting for you coming up in 2020?
Interesting. So we have a few new things coming up for 2020. So obviously we run our neuro-linguistic programming courses. So have our NLP courses, and we run them in Sydney, the Gold Coast, and Melbourne. And we have our master practitioner courses as well. Although this year is going to see the development of the 2 streams that then come off that. So traditionally, NLP has been taught in a business sense, and it's been taught very much from the masculine perspective for the majority of schools available in Australia. We're going to shift that up a bit and create 2 streams that come out of the top end of our or the bottom end of our business. Like, so as you get deeper into the business, and one will be continuing that business stream from a conscious business perspective, and the other stream will be the deep magic stream, and moving to the deep magic and understanding how you really can create the fabric of your reality from beyond the veil. And so that's exciting for me, because that's where my passion lies. And everything else has been kind of like a dress rehearsal, and a very important dress rehearsal, because it needed to have people to experience what that looked like at a surface level before they would be ready to engage with it deeply. And so for me, there's like this culmination of everything I've been working towards is going to be expressed later in the year, this year. So at the beginning of the year, we start with a high-end business retreat for 5- and 6-figure earners. And we're doing that up on the Gold Coast, which is fantastic. There's a couple of spots left. And with that, that's about creating more thought leaders. So a business retreat is often seen as, how do I make more money? Or how do I get true on my purpose? This is about, how do I create the thought leadership to enable me to gather a tribe and raise them? So rather than focusing on the individual, focusing on the collective again. So that's exciting for me.
That's super exciting. It's really wonderful to hear you describe it like that, because it's NLP can be a tool that's used in very limited ways.
Yes.
But when you actually start to see masterful communicators, it's something that's threaded through what they do at every layer. And it's just their purpose and their intentionality and how they bring it to bear, and the light of their heart's intention that directs the purpose and how it's used. Like, you know?
And for a long time, I really struggled with, how do I present NLP? Because it's known as that. And there's a lot of people who actually don't like NLP because they see it as manipulative or create other structures around it. And it's because it's been coming from that juvenile masculine space that it's appeared like that.
Yep.
Whereas the masters of NLP,
that's very much the origins of it, isn't it? That juvenile masculine college boys going, let's see if we can make this person forget who they are, or, you know, let's see if we can give this person a phobia, like just real cowboy experiments.
Yeah, and it was associated with experiments, including things like LSD and things where, you know, that the program MK Ultra with the CIA actually, created double agents. So it has a dark past. However, NLP in its essence was always about modeling and learning to have excellent behavior and model that. And when we look at that moving into the future, if NLP is not evolving as a course or as a subject, then the question is it NLP? Yeah. So a lot of
that's it. It's a body of work, and that's art and science, you know, to it. And, you know, I guess that's how I see it. And for me, it's around the perceptual nuances of communication, and how do we use our communication with ever refined, increasing lenses, like, and you know, like, it's a sensitivity to a light touch, a heavy touch, you know, like influence, persuasion, connection, influence, leadership. They are tools initiated through communication, and that is obviously the verbal, non-verbal, who we be, how we move our energy out into the world. So for me, it's an invaluable toolkit, and I think that I just think it's magic that you're going to approach it from these number of different angles. It's so needed.
Yeah. And when you look at art and science, the other place that art and science merge is magic.
For sure.
And whether we're talking stage magic or deep magic, it's the same concepts. And so it's an easy transition into creating your reality from what we teach. So yeah, it's different to traditional NLP courses. Let's just say that.
Yay. Okay. What other projects or causes or givebacks are you keen to work on over the next decade?
Oh, wow. Over the next decade. So I have a passion that's only a recent passion, and I'm still playing with it. However, it has been coming up a lot lately with this transition into the new decade. There is a lot missing for young men and young women in terms of the education that they get does not prepare them for the lives that they're living. And as a mother of 6, and I'm 46, there is a disconnect between the way that I was raised and the challenges that I had to deal with and manage compared to what my children are facing. And I'm lucky, and I'm, I guess, expanded enough to understand that my children have to go through some levels of pain, because you grow through level of pain and sometimes they choose pain. And it's okay to sit back and let that happen for them, and you can't protect them from everything. However, I believe that with the right education earlier on, and this is at school level, and I'm not suggesting that I want to go into schools, but I want to create trainers who do want to go into schools. So I want to create people who have the skill set and the mindset to be able to go into schools and create a different reality, because it is sad for me when girls are treated the way they are by young men. It's equally sad for me when young men are treated the way they are by young girls. It's sad for me to watch the rise of the drug culture in society, which is just a desire to have something more. And I think that people in the system who are indoctrinated by the system see drugs as this bad thing, or they see it as a thing that all kids do. And I'd like to create more education for people around the fact that this is something that they're craving, and we're not meeting that need, so therefore they're turning to this. You know, as the guardians of these children, we're not meeting that need, and so they're looking for it somewhere else. And it's about recognizing what that need is and then creating the ability to meet that need. So I know that's really vague at the moment, but that's where the thought process is up to.
No, that's really beautiful. I think it's something really interesting for me to check in with the causes that are calling our heart, because they evolve too. But you look back and you realize there's always been a thread of commonality, or it's been just maturing or deepening or marinating as it gets clearer or bolder or whatever it is. I just notice over the years. So okay.
So what that looks like in terms of something coming outward, I have no idea just yet.
Yeah, for sure.
And I believe that my children have a lot to teach me. And I think that that's something that parents need to recognize. And I think there's a lot of parents, particularly my age group, so the ones that have, you know, late teenagers now, that they need to recognize that whatever's going on with their kids is not necessarily their fault. We don't own our children. Our children are gifted to us, and it's our job to raise them, but we don't own them and we don't control them. And I think the sooner we stop attempting to do that, the sooner these kind of problems will start to dissipate. So that need for control, which has been programmed into us for my age group, is definitely a program that was run through school. You have to be good, you have to do this, you have to do the right thing. If you do this, you're bad. And so you need to make sure your children have done all these things, because otherwise you're a bad parent. I think there's a lot of parent guilt going on, and parent guilt, rather than being expressed as something that the parent needs to change, it's expressed as, you know, I need to change my child to fit my model of the world. And that's not fair.
Well, for me, like, as someone who doesn't have children, it's something I still feel a collective responsibility for. Like, we can do better in terms of how do we impart what matters, and like the layers of emotional intelligence, and what does it mean to be a human or a responsible adult or a compassionate caring person in this world, like that we all have a part in teaching that and how it's transmitted, particularly to people that are learning or more vulnerable or have gone through trauma or they're repatterning themselves, that we all get to choose how that story is told.
Yes.
But for sure, you look at any children and you think, how could they grow up to be violent or miserable or depressed? Like, they're all so gorgeous and beautiful and deserving of love and happiness. And it's that gap somewhere in there where it's like, we can do this better. That lesson, education, imparting of you are loved and you are amazing, and what you feel is okay, and you can be anything. And even the way we do that can be done better. So
and even when we do that as a parent, there's still a disconnect.
And that's what I mean. It's not on any one parent. It's the we as a society. That's what I mean. Rather than any one parent feeling like that they've fucked up or failed and doesn't do it, is that all of us get to be part of that. Like when we look at our environment, right? That you can sit there and go, well, I did my part, so therefore it's someone else's problem. It's like, no, it's still a we conversation.
Yes.
Whatever my role is or not is,
those collective walls where they're coming down, that's to allow this kind of conversation to happen. Because at the moment, I know for parents my age, if their children are using drugs, then it's embarrassing and they wouldn't tell anyone anyway. And creating that to be an open conversation. Oh, I don't know what happened.
We get the photo of you for a while.
Is that okay? Am I back?
Yeah, you're back.
Okay. I think maybe someone was trying to call. I have no idea what happened there. Simon, can you please call someone who keeps trying to call me? Jack. Sorry, it's my son. It's my son trying to call me. He's been trapped down the south.
Timing.
He's been trapped down the south coast with all things. So they've obviously got service now, and which is a great thing. Recognizing that it's okay to have the conversations, that it's okay to bring this into the collective.
Okay. So that's just me there for a moment. I'm guessing that Elizabeth will jump back on in just a moment. Again, it's probably the call just coming through. Quite strange. You get me for a little bit. I will share. I have a reflection. Oh, we're back. Otherwise, I would have jumped into my.
Are we back?
We are back.
Did that mess it all up?
No, that was all good. I was going to share, one of my reflections. And that's from being a child that went through a drug addiction, and I my life fell apart. So I was late 20s, early 30s, classic Saturn return. Was quite a few years of drug addiction and psychosis, and my life did fall apart, and I had to go through all of this with my parents, and to go back to a real extreme vulnerability of leaning on them, and the support I had from them during that time was amazing. But to feel the identities collapse around who you should be and what's allowed to show up as acceptable, and to realize, like, again, the psychosis, the I am crazy, like the day that I realized, like, everything went nuts, and we have so much energy built around an identity of I'm not crazy, and it's like, it's like this. And I had this one time, and I ended up in hospital, and it all just fragmented around me, and I looked at my life and went, guess that's it. I give up. I'm crazy. It's done. It's obviously decided. I've got all the evidence here. And then, I went to sleep and woke up the next day, and it's like nothing changed. And I'm like, how could this thing that had been so powerfully, energetically potent in my life collapse and nothing changed? It's because it was an illusion in the first place. But
exactly. And I think that as people who are in the system start to recognize that everything means everything and everything means nothing.
This whole good, bad, right, wrong, what's acceptable, and what does this mean about me? And
Yeah,
I'm the bad person, and
once we let go of all that meaning, it creates an openness to have those conversations. So so that's what I'm looking forward to.
It's awesome. So okay, I've got a bit of a time magic question for you.
Yes.
Okay, so if you think forward 10 years,
Yes.
2030.
Yep.
Elizabeth, she's 56. How's she doing?
Fantastically. It's incredible, the change that has occurred for, and this is where I think when you start to step into paradoxes, it becomes less about you and more about the collective. So for me, the vision of 10 years time is not something that I look forward and see me. It's something that I look forward and see results. I see creation. I see what's happening on the planet and how the collective that's developed now has transformed and transmuted and created a new reality for people. And so I think at this stage for me, looking 10 years into the future, it's not a recognizable version of me from the lens that I see myself through now.
Yeah.
And so being able to define it is challenging, other than to say it's phenomenal, it's awesome, and use a whole lot of descriptive words that mean it's great. And
okay, so let's break it down then, because I've got a few more questions. But the first one is to be out there. We okay?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. We don't have much longer on this, so it's all good.
All good.
Is when you're out there in 2030.
Yeah.
And we're looking through her eyes and we're remembering.
Yes.
What she has to share. What's the most important leadership trend she saw rise in the last decade?
This will surprise you because it's against everything else that I've said, but tenacity. The spirit of tenacity has become normal. So people stop giving up. There's no more giving up. There's no more it's too hard. There's no more I can't. There's no more that's for the famous people. There's no more this is out of my realm of experience or anything like that. There's just forward momentum. And the collective moves faster when all of the collective are moving in forward momentum. While there's people saying I can't, while there's people in the collective going, I'm not good enough yet, while there's people in the collective saying this is impossible, then it's
maybe one day. Yeah, maybe one day.
Eventually I'll get there. When I've got my website up, then I'll do something. Like those kind of behaviors that we're seeing a lot of right now, which is really just fear of stepping into power.
Yeah.
Right. When those behaviors stop, the brakes come off the collective, because those are the things that are keeping the brakes on right now. And as those brakes come off, the collective moves at a much faster speed, which is why I said in some ways it's unrecognizable, because what's happening now is where, and I think any of us who are in this flow stream are feeling it, we're moving quicker. Things are moving a lot faster. And we're starting to build momentum that eventually is going to drag those people who are putting the brakes on into our flow. And whether they like it or not, they'll be doing it. And whether they feel ready or not, it'll just have to happen, because it'll be the only decision that's available to them. And so as that happens, I think in 10 years' time, we'll be moving at a speed that's so fast that just the same as we can create change in ourselves in the beat of a heart, we'll be able to create change as a collective globally in a very short space of time. So rather than having to wait 5 years.
A lot more responsive, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I've got another question for her.
Yeah.
As she looks out at 2030 and she's feeling back, remembering that last 10 years.
Yeah.
What's been the most important question for her in her leadership and for other leaders? What's the driving question?
So how can I assist others to create what's going to support everybody? So who do I need to partner with? Who do I need to create collaboration with? Who do I need to assist to rise so that their particular medicine can be present in the world? Who are the healers? How can I elevate those people? How can I create and put them not on a pedestal, but ensure that people know who they are?
It's really interesting, those two. Like, who do I need to be around and how can I help?
Yeah.
You know, and it's that finding our place in the mission. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of like finding our little place. I love those questions. They're beautiful.
Yeah.
And as she stands there in 2030 looking back at us, what does she have to tell you?
Keep going.
Cool.
Keep going, because there is no space in this where you get to slow down. So the old paradigm said, you know, if you're not feeling it, then just step back and rest, have some time, take some time for yourself. The thing is when you start operating as a collective, the paradox is that the collective is not slowing down. The collective is not stopping for rest. The rest needs to be found in the momentum. And so it doesn't mean you don't get to rest. You just don't get to rest in the way that we've traditionally seen it, where you disconnect and stop. You get to rest while there's still forward momentum. So
that's a really interesting point, because even over the last few months, I rested in some ways in business, and I found all I focused on were the things that were like truly in flow and like my ultimate genius, and then the other things I just stopped for a while. And so that was this beautiful place of like really focusing my energy, and it felt like a rest, even though I was possibly doing more, which is quite beautiful.
And that's the paradox, right? Because I have in the past said to Simon, I just need a holiday. I just need to stop. I don't want to talk to anyone. I just need to stop and have a holiday. And then on the odd occasion when we take a day or two, and, you know, we'll often, after we've run a course, we'll have a day at a nice hotel somewhere where we stay overnight, think about anything. I actually get more done and do more effective.
Yeah, I do that. I'm like, I need some time off. And after about an hour, I'm like, okay, I think I'm done.
Yeah, exactly, right? And then you work harder.
I don't need time off this life.
Yeah, so we don't have a lot of time in this realm, and that time is ticking every second when we look at it from the calendar perspective. And so knowing that you can rest and work at the same time and accepting that paradox creates a life that you don't want to leave, that you don't need to have a holiday from.
Yeah, it's like that rest and pleasure and spaciousness can be there in every day. So
it can be to keep going.
Awesome. And does she have anything to share with the rest of us?
I think that it's important, and in order to explain it in a way that everyone will see, I'll refer to John Cotter, who wrote a book called Leading Change in 1995. There's a few simple steps. It's 8 steps. And a lot of people, as they step into this new paradigm, are finding that the ways that they managed change in the past aren't working for them. And so they're feeling like, I'm doing everything I've always done before when I've changed, but this is not feeling right. And so my personal advice is think more, feel less. However, that advice has to be taken with caution, because it's not about not feeling. It's I don't know that I have time to explain that. So that would be my personal advice.
It's kind of like, if you can just feel without the thoughts, they move pretty quick.
Right.
Like feel cleanly.
Yes, exactly. That's a good way to describe it. Whereas these steps for creating change are going to help people. So number one, you have to create urgency. So the concept of doing it in this space and flow can still exist as long as there's an urgency in finding what it is that you want to create. There's an urgency in going with the feeling. So when you get the idea, create urgency around it. Get the people in that you need to assist you. Move forward now instead of sitting and mulling over the idea for 6 months. So create urgency around it. Number 2 would be to create a powerful coalition or a group of people, a collective, whatever word you want to use for that. Create that group and move forward with them. So having supporters who back you up, who are not necessarily on the exact same mission as you, but who collectively are on the same mission. And creating that collaboration, creating that coalition, creating those people, doing things like what we're doing now. And and allowing that to create momentum for us and for others. Yeah. Number 3 would be to really get clear on your vision for change. So who are you for? Who are you not for? What are the values that you're upholding? What particular strategy are you using? Getting really clear on those things and sharing that. So number 4 is communicating the vision and communicating it from an empowered space. So not doing, oh, my life used to be like this, sob story, sob story, sob story, but if you do this, it can be great. Doing it from the empowered place that you're already in, because people are looking for a savior. Now, again, I use that word under advisement, but people are looking for change. They're desperate for it. They're just not sure where it is. So being able to communicate from an empowered space and allowing people to choose what they step up into is really important. Number 5 would be to remove obstacles. So get rid of the things that don't serve you. If you have a goal, ask every single moment of the day, is this moving me closer to my goal? If talking to your auntie who always puts you down isn't moving you closer to the goal, then stop talking to her. You don't have to create disconnect. You just need to do it in a way that doesn't slow you down, that doesn't create trauma, that doesn't create drama. And so that may mean doing it on text messages instead of on the actual phone or seeing them in person. Whatever you need to let go of it. Number 6 would be to create short-term wins. Often our goals are really big, especially in entrepreneurship. We have these big goals of changing the world. And it can sometimes be dissatisfying to think that you're working really hard and you're not achieving anything. So being really conscious about setting up those small wins where you can go, yes, I've created that. Yes, collectively we've done that. Yes, we've moved from here to there. And being able to recognize that rather than complete focus on the big goal where it always feels like it's a step away from you again. When you reach it, you're not quite there. So creating that. Number 7 is building on the change. So as the change occurs, recognizing that the goal can change because perhaps it's something that you didn't recognize before. So recognizing that and building on it, and then just anchoring in that change and going, yes, this change has occurred and now we get to reevaluate the puzzle because we've got another piece of it. So, okay, now that we're here, where are we going next? So that would be the advice I have.
Well, it's lucky that 2030 Liz prepared that for us. No, that's awesome. And if she was going to put that into one word, what would she say?
Expansion.
Cool. Yeah, for sure. It's like a commit to an expansion and just keep following through. Like it's like breathing in and out. Like you're still committed to breathing in more each time, even though you have to breathe out sometimes.
Yeah. And recognizing that the breath in is the ability to create that change on the breath out.
Yeah, like both are needed. So it's like, I think this is the thing when people talk about expansion, is that this idea that there's just more of everything and it gets more busy and more whatever. And it's like, not really. You just change the quality of problems you work on. You change where your mind's hanging out. You change the things the energy that takes up your day. So
yeah, you expand with the collective expansion. So it isn't any harder.
That'd be good. That'd be good. Well, that's been amazing. That hour's gone so quickly. We have just smashed through an hour. It's been incredible talking with you today. I'm so grateful you jumped on.
No, thank you. It's been a pleasure to chat with you like this.
It's been so good. And I'm really excited to hear what you're creating for the new year and what's coming ahead. How can people find out more about what you're doing? Stalk you or follow you, or how do we?
The easiest is to connect with me on Messenger, either through my personal page, or they can go to Elizabeth Ann Walker Training and Coaching, which is our business page. Connect there, and we can get information out to people whenever they're ready, depending on what they're interested in.
Sounds amazing. Cool. Talk soon.
Thank you very much. See ya.
Bye.
Bye.